I strongly advise you click the download spreadsheet link in the description, because you'll get this spreadsheet straight off. It's got all the code in it, everything, no registration, don't want any details. You can have it, use it to play with. That way, I think you'll learn faster, and you've got all the codes and everything set up, and then you can just apply this technique to your own spreadsheet in your own time. Okay, so to create this method here, where I've got this drop down that can show various different views, it's actually pretty darn simple, to be honest. We're making use of a built-in Excel feature that uses these views called custom views, and then we're just linking them to a really simple macro that's putting them onto a drop-down box to access them. Now, I'll give you a quick overview of how we're doing this, so that those of you that are familiar with custom views can get straight on with it and crack on. And then I'll go into the detail and we'll recreate this completely from scratch, so you can see step by step how we're going to do it. So let's go. Okay, so in order to create this technique, all I've done is I've created various custom views here, and you could and then I've recorded that macro showing those custom views and used that kind of code and linked it to a combo box. Now, in order to have the combo box pick up new views, I've used a new bit of code which you might have seen something similar before. So if I click into view codes, by the way, all the green in here is just my comments. The actual amount of code is very low. So this is the key piece of code here. I'm just looping through every custom view in the active workbook and adding it to the combo box. So every time you drop down on the arrow of the combo box, it clears the entries and adds all the new custom views in. And then, depending on, as long as you haven't picked anything blank, it selects it and shows it. So that's the overview. That's what we're going to do. I'm now going to create it completely from scratch. Right, so we're going to create a brand new spreadsheet now using these and set it up exactly like this. So just go to all data. So I'm going to copy and paste all this data here into a brand new spreadsheet. I'll put it here, and actually I'll just put it on the same row, just to keep things nice and simple. Right. So here's our data. Now I'm just going to move that across there, and I'm going to freeze the panes just so that when we scroll we can go up and down like that. Now at the moment we're just on this sort of book one here. We've got no custom views, nothing built in. So I'm just going to start with this, call this a custom view, which is everything. So I'm going to add this, and I'm going to call this all data. So it's kind of like your kind of default, right? Click OK, and that way we've got a custom view to work with when we start adding stuff together. Right. So because we're dealing with VBA code, we're going to use an ActiveX control drop down, which is this one here, combo box ActiveX. Just, you could use a form control. I mean, you could even use data validation list if you're really keen. You know, you can get the technique to work, but because we're using VBA, we might as well go straight for the ActiveX control. We've got a full range of features and built-in event procedures. So when we click on it, we can have macros running, nice and simple. So I'm going to, holding down Alt, I can make this as wide as I want. So I'm going to make it about that wide. Now, I'm just going to right click on it and go to properties and look at some of the key properties that we need to be careful of. So the very first one is the style. It says at the moment it is a drop down combo. We want it to be a drop down list. The reason for that is a combo will let you type any entry you want into it. And that's going to just confuse, we've got set custom views that we're going to be picking up. We don't need people typing what they want in there. Make it a list. Next one, I'm going to get rid of this sunken view. And the reason that I do that, by the way, is when you're working on, it restricts the amount of area that for your font. And that's fine in that, when you're working with user forms, you can make it as big as you like. But when you're on a worksheet, it's better to have it matching sort of cell heights and things like that. So I'll make that flat. And when you do that, you can see when you click away, you've got no border. So now just need to put border single. We need this to be floating on top of the spreadsheet, because when we're hiding and showing various columns, we don't want these things moving around. So we need them floating over. So if we go to Format Control and Properties, just tick on this, don't move or size with cells. And when we insert our text box, again, hold down Alt to match it to the cell size. Exactly the same thing. Format Control, don't move or size with cells. That way, everything's going to just sort of stay in line, and we can even hide the very columns that are underneath that, those controls. So again, Properties. This, we're going to have a border, single border, and the caption that we want is, we can say choose view. Okay, that's looking all right. Click back off. I'm just going to remove the grid lines from the spreadsheet to give it a slightly more professional look. So far, so good. So we've got our panes frozen and we've got one view. Well, I'm going to create a custom view and then record a macro showing me how I select that. So let's pick a relatively straightforward one where we just hide, all the product and regional data. So let's just hide all of that and apply some filters with Control-Shift-L. Let's hide that as well. We don't need that. And we'll filter it to critical orders. Okay, let's just pick that one. So if I go then custom view, add, and just give it a name. If I just call that critical order, critical orders, let's just call it now. Right, okay. So we've got two custom views. So now what we need to do is add some code to this view. So if we go to view code, you can see that straight away it's selecting a change event. Now actually I don't want to use a change event because I want it to populate from the list of custom views, and if I can't wait for it to change in order to do that, otherwise you get, I've done it before, what happens is you get your previous list, you pick something, then it updates, then you have to go click on it again to see the new list. So it's much better if we pick the drop button click event and delete that event. Now of course I've got the code from the previous workbook here. So if you look at this code here, but I'm going to create this pretty much from scratch, and then I could show you sort of how I basically went about doing this if you didn't know how to get this code yourself. Developer tab, record macro. Doesn't matter what we call it, as long as it's in this workbook and you're going to be able to find it. View, custom view, all data, show, and then I'm just going to do it again, but with the other one, critical order, show. So I've done it twice. No real reason, just so we can see a bit more code. So stop that recording, go to the Visual Basic. It would have put it in a module in the current workbook, gone there. So I'm just going to grab that code. Well, actually, I'm just going to put it here for now. Right, active workbook, custom views, its name, .show. Right, It's fairly straightforward. So that's how you're going to show custom views. Now, what we want to do is detect all the custom views. It's a fairly standard technique I kind of use. So let's just make this in a test macro actually, because otherwise then we can test it. So this for each command. So for each, and then you just make up some kind of name. So we want to loop through all our views. So I'm just going to call it OView, as it's a view object. You know, just like to prefix my variables in VBA with something that kind of represents the type of variable they are. So OView in, and then I'm just going to say active workbook.custom views, and then next OView. Right, so this is a loop that's going to loop through all our custom views and allocate them to this variable OView. So we then have this combo box 1. So if we do combo box 1 dot add item, what are we going to add? We're going to add OView dot name. So that's my guess, right, at what might work. Okay, this is kind of how I work when I'm building code from scratch. Right, appears to be doing something. Right, it's ended. What's it done? Well, let's have a look. Oops. What I should have done before. Well, you can see it's basically added the 2 straight away, so we know it's worked. I've hit escape there, hit OK, hit stop. Now, the reason we've got problems here is because all of this code we need to comment out whilst we're in development mode, if you like. Right, so that's added it. Okay, that's great. That's brilliant, right? Now, we also need to clear it before we add it. Otherwise, every time we click on the thing, it's going to add just this code just adds it on the bottom. And if I run it again, and now have a look, you see you got everything twice. So you don't want that. So we need a line of code to say that we want to clear it. Right, so now when I run that, I mean, it's quick as a flash, isn't it? Right, that's working there. You can select it. I can't type anything else. So this is ideal. So now all we want to do is say we want to show. So we effectively want to show a custom view now that's been picked. So whatever's been chosen. So I think we need a subtest 2. So this time what we want to do is the view we want to show is whatever's in the combo box. So combo box 1 dot value. So what's in the combo box? All data, perfect, because we're not in all data view at the moment. Run that macro. We're at all data. Right, excellent. If I change that to critical orders, run this macro. Critical orders, right, looking good, yeah. So now all we need to do is get this automated, really. So this is our core code. So if we stick something in here, this drop down box click, this is the way this is how we want to. So in an ideal world, what I would say is that when you click on the drop down, you run this code, and when you run, so if we go to combo box 1, and then we go to a change event, so we've got a change event, and then we got a drop button click event. So in my simple terms, when I was thinking about doing this video for you, I thought, right, well, I'll just run this code in the drop down. So when you click the drop down, it populates the list, and then I'll run this code on the change event. And so you click on the drop down, it populates the list, you pick what you want, and it shows you the view. Right, for some unexplainable reason, Excel runs this event twice. It runs it once when the drop down comes down, and then it runs it again as it goes back up. And the problem with that is that what happens, if you think about this logically, is that what I'm going to do is clear the list and populate it. Then somebody's going to pick an item, right, which will run this macro, it will show the view. Then when they go back up, it's going to clear the list and populate it again, which is then going to trigger the show macro again. Because, sorry, the change macro again, because the list has just changed. So you end up in this ridiculous loop where you always end up with some sort of blank situation going on. I won't bother showing you because I made the mistake. Trust me, it doesn't work. So what we need to do is build the whole thing into the drop button click event. And then what we'll do is, because we know it's going to run twice, we'll just have this sort of alternating flag so we can tell whether it's when the list is coming down or whether it's when the list is going up. So when the list comes down, we populate the list, and when the list goes back up, we know they must have selected an item, so we'll just show the view. How do we achieve this? Well, this is a great little technique that I discovered a few years ago, and I use it all the time now in coding. So what we need is just like any old cell we can use here, right? And I'm just going to call this tag. I always put an N, same reason I put an O in front of the word view earlier in the VBA code. I put an N in front of it so that we can, I know it's a named range. Hit enter. Don't just click out of it because it won't register it. Hit enter. We now have a name range called N tag, and I'm going to put a number 1 in it. Okay, so it's got a 1 in it. So what I want to do, I'm going to tab all this in slightly. I want to detect if there's a number 1 in that range, okay? So I'm just going to say if range and tag dot value equals 1, then this is populate the list. Else unpopulate the list. Sorry, show the view, I mean, because and if, and then whatever happened, I'm going to basically change that value to its another state. And if I just times it by -1, effectively that every time, so it's 1 at the moment, times it by -1 becomes -1. So this code runs next time, right? Then after that code runs, you times it by -1 again, so it's currently -1, now changes -1 times -1 is 1, it goes back to 1, that code runs. So it's a great way. Effectively, every time this macro runs, it'll either run that, and then next time it'll run that, and it will just alternate between running these 2 sections of code. So it's a brilliant technique that I use very often actually. It kind of gives you like almost like a flip system, and you can write completely elaborate stuff based off of this. But anyway, for now, click it once, populates it. As it goes up, populates it again. So if I run test, all it's going to do is populate it at the moment, right? And then it'll run at -1, and the next time it'll show the view. So I'm actually going to drop this straight into here now. So if I uncomment that, incidentally, these 2 toolbars that I'm using here, you can, I'm just going to move them over here actually, because I frequently find they're in the wrong place for me. Right, you can just go into view toolbars and you can add them on here. Right, so I uncommented that and I put all of that code into here. And I'm going to delete these 2 tests and all of that rubbish there. And that. Right, so we're down to our basic clear code now. Does it work? Right, so when I click on here, I get the 2 here, go to all data, changes it, critical orders, changes it. Right. Well, let's just test it here, because there is a slight issue you need to deal with, because if I go, actually, that's it, see, I just clicked on the blank. I'll do that again so you can see what I did. I just click on it while it's blank and you get an error. And the reason for that is you're trying to show a custom view that's completely blank. So simple case of that's the value in the combo box. So all you need to do is just put an if that is not equal to blank, then show the view. And that way, if it's blank, just won't do anything. So that deals with that little error. Should do anyway, yeah. Certainly not. Now the reason for that is because we need to reset our tag because we had these errors. So it's very important here. Yeah, the tag needs to be 1 before you start. In other words, 1 means populate. So now we've got our critical orders, all data. We can switch between the 2. Does it work for another view? Let's just go back to all data, put some filters on it. Let's just select 1 region, something we can see very clearly. 1 type of customer, small business. 1 category of, just do envelopes. Right, so we know we've only got 2 lines there. Let's hide an absolute load of columns. Call that a custom view. So we'll add a test view, click OK. Immediately it appears. So we can go between that. Right. So that's how you achieve these custom views linked to a drop-down box. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you download that spreadsheet, got all the code, it's fully annotated. So I've recreated it here, but actually in here I've got much more annotated code explaining what it's all doing so that you can look back at it and see what's done. Practice with all the data. Have a look. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you have a look around the channel for plenty more tips and tricks from Up for Excel. I'll see you soon.